Strasser is a former president of Sierra Leone who came to power in a military coup in 1992 and served as president until 1996. However, after leaving office, Strasser's fortunes took a turn for the worse, and he is now considered to be one of the world's poorest past presidents. This is an unusual case, as many former heads of state can maintain significant wealth and power after leaving office. Valentine Strasser holds the record for becoming the youngest head of state in Africa, where young people are given little to no respect for running for office. You will agree with us that it is challenging to lead a country under a military government, but Valentine Strasser managed to do it. How was he able to do so? In this video, we will be talking about the life of Valentine Strasser, his rise and fall as the youngest president, and also his fall into abject poverty. Let's get started. His early life and education. Strasser was born on April 26, 1967, in Freetown, the capital of Sierra Leone. His parents were from the Creole ethnic group. He grew up in the neighborhood of Allen Village, a little town on the eastern end of Freetown, and he never for a moment thought of becoming the world's youngest head of state. Strasser went to the Sierra Leone Grammar School in Freetown. He was an excellent student in mathematics and chemistry. He finished his secondary education there in 1985, and at the age of 18, Strasser enlisted in the Republic of Sierra Leone military forces. Strasser's military career. At the age of 19, Strasser finished his military training at the Bengoma Military Training Academy and was recruited into the Sierra Leone Army shortly before the military came into power. On November 28, 1985, at the end of his term, President Stevens resigned from office, and Major General Joseph Momo, a notoriously inept leader who favored the status quo, was appointed president. After Valentine Strasser was recruited into the army, he was given a job in Calahan, the eastern part of Sierra Leone. As an army officer, Valentine Strasser was sent to serve in neighboring Liberia as part of a regional peacekeeping mission called ICOMOG. Civil war had broken out there in 1989, and in 1991, ICOMOG was attempting to secure order in the capital of Liberia, Monrovia. After 7 months in Liberia, he returned home, but the war followed him. On the 25th of March 1991, the Revolutionary United Front, under the command of Fode Sanko, started its first attack on the Bwedu villages in the Calahan district. Strasser and other soldiers who were already in military barracks in Calahan were called upon to fight the rebels. The Revolutionary United Front rebels had more weapons because they bought them from Sierra Leonean soldiers and neighbors like Guinea and Liberia with the money they made from the alluvial diamond mines. As the battle with the Revolutionary United Front rebels grew, Strasser and his colleagues ran out of supplies like boots and other important military equipment. They pleaded with the government of Sierra Leone repeatedly to send supplies to aid Strasser and his fellow soldiers in their battle with the Revolutionary United Front, but their requests went unanswered. The soldiers never got their pay on time. With time, they eventually began to feel as if they were being set up to be killed. Thus, in response to repeated requests from a group of young soldiers led by Strasser, decided to remove the president from the State House. Strasser and the 1992 coup. On April 29, 1992, Strasser headed to the State House with a group of fellow young troops in a car they had stolen from a senior officer the day before. When Strasser and his team arrived in Freetown, they quickly took over the State House. When President Momo saw the soldiers, he quickly went and hid in the bathroom of his lodge. From there, he was put in a helicopter and crossed over the border to Guinea. After the successful coup, he and his supporters established the National Provisional Ruling Council, a military junta, and made Strasser its leader and head of state, making him the youngest head of state in both Africa and the entire world. He was the chairman of this council, and his vice chairman was just 22 years old. Valentine Strasser's English was so good well enough to read out a statement on the radio. The coup on April 29 was met with cheers and applause across the nation, and even the foreign community gave him its best wishes. A 25-year-old had saved the nation, which was on the verge of collapsing. Strasser's life as president. After the coup, he became the head of state, just 3 days after his 25th birthday. Although not everything was right, Strasser's first few months were full of successes. His party, the National Provisional Ruling Council, stated on December 29, 1992, that it had stopped a plot to overthrow him after only 7 short months in power. They claimed that a gang of officers and citizens had stormed the presidential residence at Kabaza Lodge in Freetown. The following day, it was revealed that the 29 coup plotters had been executed following a trial by a military court. As a result of the fatalities, hatred and contempt for the National Provisional Ruling Council quickly grew. After the jubilation of the coup, there was still a war to fight. The rebels increased their amount of territory during their control, including lucrative diamond mines. There were also reports of atrocities committed not only by the rebels, but also by some government troops. During this war, civilians suffered from mutilation, where they had their ears, lips, and limbs cut off. Children as young as 12 were enlisted to fight in the war with the Revolutionary United Front as part of a recruitment campaign for the army, which was launched by Strasser's government on January 1994. Consequently, the army's size increased from 5,000 in 1991 to 12,000 in 1994. Strasser's government allowed journalists and regime critics entry to the Criminal Investigation Department and prisons to control the media. Freedom of the press was limited, and journalists were imprisoned. His overthrown from power. The people began to recognize Strasser's government for what it truly was as the years passed. The country grew weaker with each passing day. The rebel war had spread into some places that had never been attacked, even during the incompetent Momo administration. Strasser went for a routine government meeting that was also attended by his second-in-command Julius Maada Bio. According to Strasser's stories, he entered the meeting without his security detail, so there was nothing he could do when Julius Bio drew a gun from under the table and pointed it at him. Following Valentine Strasser's overthrow by his second-in-command, the United Nations arranged for him to leave Sierra Leone and attend Warwick University in the United Kingdom. However, after 18 months, Strasser dropped out. The United Nations gave in to pressure from advocates who charged the Strasser regime with several unlawful deaths. The former youngest president moved to London after losing his job and becoming homeless. There he led a nomadic life while waiting for his immigration application to be granted. After his location and past actions were made public by British newspapers 2 years later, the former world's youngest head of state fled to Gambia as people began to treat him with disrespect. Strasser's wife left him, making what was already a bad situation even worse. He was stopped on his arrival in Gambia and sent back to Britain, where he was not allowed to enter. Then he made his way back to Sierra Leone, where he lived in poverty with his mother in Grafton, a seaside village near the peninsula, on a small pension. While with his mother, Strasser developed a serious illness. He was taken to Ghana for medical attention on January 2019. His left leg was amputated during treatment, but he was stabilized and stayed in the nation for more than a year before he was allowed to return home to a brand new house thanks to President Julius Maada Bio. It is surprising that President Bio, with whom he had a strained relationship, spearheaded his medical treatment overseas and has now capped it all off by giving him a house of his own. In the absence of any explanation, we assume that the president used his funds to rehabilitate a colleague who had fallen on hard times. While many pity him as a glamorous liberator who has now fallen on hard times, there are others who have never forgiven him and his colleagues for extrajudicial killings and other actions that may have affected friends and acquaintances. The former government had brought permanent poverty and suffering to its citizens, and as such, it needed to be changed. Unfortunately, nothing changed under the new government led by Strasser. Nevertheless, Strasser will always be remembered as the youngest president in history. We have come to the end of this video. Let us know what you think about Valentine Strasser and his predecessor in the comments section. Thanks and see you in our next video.